People think it's not going to happen to them. And when that does happen to them, they always say, why me?
In the first episode of Dumb Ways to Get Hacked with Bora, our special guest is Greg Clarkson. Greg Clarkson is a highly experienced IT professional and CEO of Network Overdrive, an Australian IT company that helps businesses optimize their technology investments. He is a leading voice in cybersecurity and data recovery, empowering businesses with IT literacy to thrive in the digital age.
The myth is that you can't trust somebody else to think that you're right. You actually have to spend some time to understand it. Cybersecurity, it's not a tick a box, spend a chunk of money and you're done. You've got to upgrade from traditionally it was antivirus. You tend to assume that, oh, my IT guy's a good guy. They are protecting me over everything.
Hello and welcome to Dumb Ways to Get Hacked episode 1. Today is a special episode because I have a cybersecurity expert with me who I've known for a long time, who I've worked together with, I've worked for, and continue to have a great relationship because he's a knowledge of wealth when it comes to this, especially with everything cybersecurity, IT knowledge. I'd like to welcome to the show, Greg. Greg, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here. How are you doing?
Good, thanks, Greg. Greg, tell us about yourself.
Oh, well, I'm Greg. I run an IT company called Network Overdrive. We do a bunch of things, but we feel it's important to really focus on cybersecurity these days. We've suffered attacks. Our customers have suffered digital attacks. And we're just getting sick of it, mate. It's unnecessarily hurting people that I want to keep safe. So we've really focused on what does it require to actually stop the hackers and the criminals from getting in and doing damage.
There's so many myths out there when it comes to cybersecurity, whether people have heard on some show that they watch or Hollywood or other people. Or what's one or two myths you can definitely say to our listeners about cybersecurity?
Yeah, well, the biggest one is people think it's not going to happen to them. And when that does happen to them, they always say, why me? Why do they pick on me? What have I done? So the reality is that they're so widespread, the attempts, that it's like a shotgun effect. It's just going everywhere, that we're all a potential target. And whether you're big or small, you can become a victim. And the second myth that people have is that they think they're completely protected, like someone's told them, yeah, you're right. And so they can just forget about cybersecurity and just get on with their life. And unfortunately, nowadays, you actually need to think a bit more about it and understand the ways people are trying to get to you. So the myth is that you can't trust somebody else to think that you're right. You actually have to spend some time to understand it.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter what level business you're running or operating, I guess at the end of the day, when it comes to cybersecurity, you can't put the onus on anyone but yourself. You can't trust that just because your IT guy said that you're at this level of protection, that you don't have some idea of what the action plan is. So I guess that's what I want to talk about today. So as a business, let's start off why, again, when it comes to cybersecurity, what is cybersecurity protection when it comes to a business?
Right. So cybersecurity is designed to stop bad things happening to you. And it makes more sense if you understand who's out to get you and why they're trying to target you. And then once you understand who and why, then the words cybersecurity start to make more sense. So you go, oh, right, I need these sort of defenses. Because if you know that it's going to be like someone who's basically going to knock your door down and steal your something inside your house, then you know what your defense needs to be. You're going to boost the door and you're going to hide the silverware. But then if you learn that they can also jump through your window, then you're going to lock your window. The same thing is that if you know that a criminal reckons that if they stopped you from being able to work and told you that you can't work until they let you, that you'll be prepared to pay money, then you know that, like, for example, ransomware is something that, okay, this is why they're doing it, because the people like me are willing to pay. So how do I stop myself from doing that? Now, then you can go and ask the professionals, because there's different tactics, just like you'd ring the locksmith. You don't need to know what type of lock is happening, but you know that the front door has to get protected, and you know you need to lock down the windows and you need to hide your silver. Similarly, that's the sort of thing you need to know in terms of, am I cyber secure? The other thing is, unfortunately, is once you know who's trying to get you and what they're trying to do, you'll start to realize they're going to change. Just like they originally knocked the door down, and then later on, once they realize the door was locked, they go through the window. You know that with cybersecurity, it's not a tick a box, spend a chunk of money, and you're done. Unfortunately, you have to keep thinking, okay, I put up this defense. What other way they're going to do? So you can think of cybersecurity a little bit like the Cold War, or a football match, a footy match, where you've got one strategy and then they got another strategy, and you got to keep going for the whole game. Except the game never ends. The game only ends when you give up, and you stop being digital. So you shut your business down. But while you're operating, the game never ends.
That's a great analogy. I mean, I'd almost argue it's like you playing against three opponent teams at once and trying to
Well,
protect
that's
yourself.
right.
Yeah, definitely. And what are the common attacks that cyber criminals are using against a lot of businesses at the moment?
Right. Well, that's a great question because things have changed. I use the example ransomware because that's become such common to talk about but it's actually old school. So I would say ransomware hit its peak just before COVID. And what would happen is that you would click on some program that you shouldn't. Either it came from an email or a website, and that program would go through it and turn all your data, your important files, into some gobbledygook that you can't access. And so therefore you can't work. And the only way you can do that is if you know the decryption key that can unencrypt the files. So they're not completely destroyed, but they're put into this encryption. And then you get a letter that says, or like a letter meaning an email, or it could be a note on your desktop that says, oh, it looks like your files are encrypted. This must be really difficult for you. We can help. Now, they're the people who did it in the first place, but they go, we can help. Send us X amount of Bitcoin and we'll send you the decryption file. Now, firstly, they may not send you the encryption file, but generally they want to send you the encryption file because, they're in business and they want to have a successful outcome so that they can go, so the next person gives them money too. But in the lead up to COVID, with so many people going to the cloud, it actually improved their backups. So now when people have encryption, they say, I don't care. I'm not going to pay. I'm just going to recover from backups. So I can wait X amount of hours. So long as you've got good backups, the ransomware is not really a very big threat. So the criminals now have to realize that what is better is for them to get into your business and not immediately tell you that they got into your business. So like once someone encrypts your data, you really know, oh, I can't work. You've been hacked. Now, the way they do it is they go silent. So it's like the person who sneaks into your house and takes a photo of you while you're sleeping and then disappears again and does it for 30 days. And you don't know that they've been going into your house. Like that is the current attack. And what they do is they figure out the information that they can use. They sell the information on the net if you're of a chosen type of business, or they blackmail you with the information, or they scam you. They find out something about you. So they're so convincing that you're willing to give money. So generally, if you're a small business, they'll figure out a way to scam you. If you're a big business, they'll figure out a way to embarrass you with the data leakage.
Yeah. So I guess the big thing is preventative maintenance, right? Like the best defense you've got is not necessarily offense by attacking, but by having systems in place to minimize the risk of it happening, right?
Well, that's right. So that's exactly right. So you don't want them to get in. And then if they do get in, they're going to be sneaky. They're going to poke around without wanting to have anyone draw attention. So you want to have systems that can detect unusual behavior. So, and that's
Yeah.
why
Well, what
the
type of
next,
systems do that, Greg? What's
well,
available?
well, great. So firstly, in terms of preventing, this is like your things like there's scanning at the email level to turn your links into safe links so that if you click on something you shouldn't, It will check the link before they let you go to the website. It's like scanning in terms of being able to pick someone who's trying to scam you. They said its email looks a bit dodgy, so they block. So these are preventative measures, as well as your firewall, as well as simply your password, so you can't log into your thing. Now they're going to facial recognition. All these ways are to prevent. And then in terms of detecting sneaky behavior, you got to upgrade from traditionally it was antivirus, and now they called a device or endpoint detection and response. So the detection is all about detecting not a virus, but sneaky behavior. And so that's the next generation of technology to try and stop this threat.
Yeah, that's a good takeaway. So what are the takeaways that you can give a business right now, or anyone who's tech savvy who wants to understand, what are the takeaways you can give them to put the best preventative maintenance in place?
Firstly, one of the good things that people may not be aware of is that the Australian government actually is trying to help. And to my surprise, to be frank, I actually feel like they've done a good job in this area. They've published this thing called cyber.gov.au with a whole lot of information, and they will tell you the things that you need. Not saying you have to buy this product or that product from a vendor, but they'll tell you this type of thing you should buy, this type of system you should implement. So, and they've researched hundreds of Australian businesses that have been hacked. They've got the best minds in Australia thinking about, well, what could we do to prevent it? And they've come up with these guidelines. So first, that's what I mean by now the Australian business owners or anyone who's not tech savvy, you can go to this website and it's fairly easy to understand, or you can get someone to explain. And once someone talks it through with you, you kind of makes sense to you. And then you get a professional in to implement that. The other thing about what the Australian government has done is that they've now offered a program to allow people to get certified. So it's both an audit to check what, you get an IT professional to do the work. Now you can get someone to audit that and to tell you that they've done a good job. So now you know that, when this, my mum just had rain damage on her roof. She sent the plumber 3 times to the roof to check. And then when the insurance came and checked, they hadn't done a good job. If that was a cybersecurity event, she would have been done. So she thought she was secure. They told her you're secure, but it actually wasn't. So now you get the guy to audit the plumber, or in this case, the IT person, and you know for sure that they're doing it as per what the Australian government is recommending.
Yep. So the essential 8 is based on a set of rules where they've said if you stick to a certain group of 8 rules, that's the minimum requirement. Which businesses is this targeting? Is it for every business? Like if I was a plumber or versus I was a corporate business, which of the businesses that are actually targeted by this?
Yeah, so just to unpack that I told you that you should go to the Australian government to this cyber.gov and they will tell you. And in that thing, they've got lots of advice, and their initial feedback was it's too much advice. So they boiled it down to say, look, Australian businesses, you just got to know these 8 things. There's lots of things you can know, but just what is essential is 8 things. And then in each one of these 8 things, there's certain level of how sophisticated you can be. Just to use a house analogy, for example, one of the essential 8 could be that you've got to have a lock on your front door. Now, then the levels go on how well you want the door locked. Do you want the door locked to keep out a local person who just happens to walk by and just test your handle and see if they can walk in? Well, that's kind of like level 1. Now, if you want someone who's actually pretty angry and is willing to kick your door down, then you need a level 2 type lock, and so on. So with the essential 8, you've got these 8 things you've got to know. So, like, for example, I need a lock in the essential 8. It'll be, I got to have things patched up to date. I got to have my applications configured in a way that someone can't exploit them. I've got to have backups. And then it says, well, what type of backup do I need? And then they'll say, well, for the type of backup where you just have someone accidentally just delete something, this is the type of backup you need. But if you need a backup that's someone who's pretty serious, who knows IT a lot, grabs your computers, then you need a different type of backup. And so each of these 8 controls have different levels. So what's happening now is that the Australian government is saying that for all federal government departments, they have to get to level 2 in all 8 controls. So they need to get to a level that if someone targets that department, they can protect themselves against it. So that's level 2. And what we're thinking is that right now, businesses, organizations that want to get ahead of the game and say, hey, yes, we believe that cybersecurity is good for us and for our customers, they can now use this essential 8. They can get an assessor to come in, and then they can say, we're accredited. And that will be universally accepted that you're at that certain standard. And they said, that's great. That gives us competitive advantage. But in the future, once the federal government's departments get to level 2, if you're selling into those departments, they're going to require you to be at a certain cybersecurity level. So any business that's looking to sell to federal need to start thinking about this now. And then you might say, I don't sell to business, to federal government, but hang on, you might sell yourself to a business who sells to federal government, and then you're going to be caught up. So this is how this essential 8 idea is going to spread throughout the Australian community.
Yeah, I think it's important just to put out there, look, regardless, we don't need, as a small business might not need to be at level 2 or level 1, but the importance of having, as you said, I've got a house, I need to put locks. You know what? I do want that crim safe. I want to be able to have my windows locked. I've got an alarm system. I've got a camera system. And then inside the house, I've got copies of data that I've taken outside because we can't protect against natural disaster or disaster recovery. So it's still such a good idea for any business really to have the core of those systems in place so they minimize, and this is where the preventative part comes into it. And ideally, because you understand the core of what's actually going on, you're not necessarily dependent on your IT contractor or your IT MSP or whoever you might be using, or your uncle's son, as we see in a lot of businesses, to be responsible. Because the big thing we always run into is that, but my IT guy does that. Isn't that something, isn't that his problem? I'm going to go after my IT. Well, no, the government doesn't care about your IT guy. The government says, what, as a business owner, have you done? You don't, as you said, you don't need to understand which locks are used, but you need to be aware that you need a lock there. You can't just put a doorstop and think that's good enough because someone's done that.
And I think what's nice about a business owner learning the language of Essential 8, it means that you can talk to people like IT people and you're on the same page. So, and so without it, some people, like I said before, one of the myths is that you don't want to understand it. You just trust somebody else saying it. And what happens is that you tend to assume that, oh, my IT guy is a good guy. They are protecting me over everything. Every single cybersecurity attack, they're going to protect me from. Where the reality is, if you truly ask them, are you going to protect me from everything? They'll say no. They will say, well, no, we can't. So what the maturity levels will give you is that if you're at maturity level 0, what that means is that you are likely to be affected by a random, unfocused cybersecurity hack. So this is like someone sending 1 million emails out the door with viruses. And if that email happens to hit you, you're likely to get done. So that's like a random attack. You're not targeted. You have to get to level 1 if you want to protect yourself from random attacks. But it's not going to protect you from targeted attacks. So if some person out there is out to get you and they're thinking about your business, they're researching who you are and they're going to craft an attack, it's going to get through that defense. So if you want to protect yourself against the attacks that someone who's got you in their sights and they want to get you, you have to go to level 2. But there's a cost to that as well. So now you can have a really healthy conversation with your IT person to talk about what level you're comfortable with as a business. And you understand that when they say you're right, you're protected, they're probably saying that you are at a level that you're protected against random attacks, which frankly is fantastic. Like if the whole of Australia, all Australian businesses got to that level of random attacks are a thing of the past, we'll be so much better off. We'll be more productive. Our economic growth will increase. So that's what we're trying to get to, is to stop these random drive-by shootings effectively, get them out of Australia. And so now the only things that we have to worry about after that is targeted, like a business that says, right, company XYZ, we're out to get you. And then you've got to go to the next level. And that's why federal governments have to go to level number 2, because they want to protect themselves against those targeted attacks.
I think, just to put it out there, a recent research I was doing, that the dark web, or the hackers domain, if you want to call it, is actually the third biggest economy behind America and China. So
Wow.
I think, to put that into perspective, they don't care whether you're small business, big business. They run businesses like professional, like, these guys have basically got organizations where they've got HR people, they've got managers, they've got low-level people, they've got contractors, and they will even dare to go to the level of advertising fake jobs on places like LinkedIn or Seek to actually employ people. So, when people assume, why my target or whatever it is, well, it's the third biggest economy in the world. So therefore,
that's right.
they're going to target you. It doesn't matter whether you've only got, a little piggy bank or you've got something large.
Because the scale is so big, if they can just make 50 cents out of stealing a bit of your identity, they're going to make a lot of money. So like the margins are like, because the scale is so large, they only need to make a small amount of money per hit, and it funds this third largest economy. So we're all susceptible to this, and it's overwhelming. For once, I'm comforted that we've also got a resources on the good guys' side to be able to protect against this. Because if you had to figure out what's the best way to deal with these guys on your own, it costs you a lot of money and you probably still get it wrong.
To finish it off, Greg, have you got any stories that you can share with us, obviously without giving away any names?
Last year, someone who's a sole business, single person, who uses a Gmail account, talking to somebody else that they do business with for ages. They, believe that the other person got hacked. They didn't realize that. And so they were having a conversation with a hacker for a couple of days. And in the course of that, they got sent an invoice. This person was watching for more than 3 months, and they knew that this deal was coming and that it would be a big deal for everybody. So they were all a bit excited when they got the deal. And then they took over the account when the big deal was about to happen. And they just needed the order now. They needed to place the order to buy these goods to supply their customer now. So he was in a hurry. They said, oh, to pay this is a special big order. You need to use a different bank details. Here's the bank. He said, yep, fine, great. And transferred $25,000 into the wrong bank account. Right. And so that's just an individual, and that really gutted him. And so it's just like, this is what I mean, is that because these days they're lurking, they really can figure out when to strike, and they're watching and they're learning a lot about you to know when you're most vulnerable. For that business, it was the excitement of a deal about to be made.
I guess, to summarize it, at the end of the day, you do your best to protect yourself, protect your business by implementing, understanding cybersecurity, talking to the right people, and taking the responsibility of knowing what it is that's actually happening in place, so you're not caught out. And I'm sure we're going to have many more stories. We'll go out for every episode, and really looking forward to having you on the show again. Greg, thank you so much.